Alright, so in this video I want to talk about synchronization. When I started playing, I was really into Metallica at first, but then around 6 months into my sort of playing journey or whatever, I found out about Yngwie and I really started listening to him a lot. Now around that time, my older brother, who used to also beat me a lot, which, you know, is part of being a younger brother, I guess, he actually helped me out by building basically a half-speed recorder. So I had this tape deck where you had two different tapes, and then one of the tape decks he actually opened up and then managed to slow that one down. So basically it was roughly 50% of the speed, so basically like putting down the music one octave, which was very handy because then I could take all these licks that I liked hearing and sort of put them under a microscope and try to understand why I liked them. So I was very drawn to fast pick line for whatever reason. So I remember taking like the fast line from at the end of For the Love of God by Steve Vai. I like the sound of that. I remember hearing the end to Rising Force by Yngwie. They hold the unison line with the keyboard, and it was all kinds of cool licks like that I, you know, when I listened to it, it sounded like it started over here, went across the whole fretboard and back. But when you could slow it down, you really got a better sense of what was happening. But I also did this to lines where I were a bit more not so sure about them because they didn't sound that great to me. And that's where I found out about how important synchronization is. Because when you slow down a fast, accurate line, like Paul Gilbert or some of Yngwie's line, Yngwie could be, you know, a bit sloppy at times, but when he really was on point, it was the best sound ever, in my opinion. And when you slow those down, you really could hear every note. So, you know, a fast lick would actually sound like, you know, when you slowed it down. But when you slow down faster licks from not so good guitar players, which I won't name here, which ones I'm talking about, basically you would hear stuff like, you know, a lot of noise in between, and sometimes you would hear this, that really unsynchronized sound where it's really slurry and there's no articulation. And when I realized that, I got really scared of practicing in the wrong way because I really didn't like the unarticulated sound and I wanted to avoid that at all costs. So that led me to practicing quite slowly, just, you know, trying to avoid it as much as possible. But as I played more and as I learned more and bought new books and all kinds of things happened, I started realizing that you could practice in better or worse ways. And one of the best ways I found for learning how to synchronize your hands is a technique called transition time. And I first saw this in the book Speed Mechanics by Troy Stettner, but then I also got shown by an instructor at GIT when I went there. And I went there quite early in my playing journey. I think I'd been playing for like 2.5 years or something. So, and I was really good to do that, so I could get all this good information, because this was the mid-90s. So no YouTube, no nothing. You had, you know, some instructional videos and some guitar mags pretty much. But learning about that technique was really helpful. So I'm going to show you what that is about here. And I'm also going to show you two other things that I've picked up during the years that have really helped my playing a lot, but also hundreds of students throughout the years as well. So if you have trouble with hand synchronization, this should help you as well. At least give it a try and do it for a few weeks, and I think you will see quite a big difference if you've never tried it before. I've talked about this before, but you know, a lot of you seem to miss some videos that I make, and I make a lot of videos, so I'm not surprised that happens. So it's good to revisit this stuff that's really important. But I'm gonna link to that original video that I did about this as well, so you can check that out. Maybe I'll explain in a different way in that video. So if you have a hard time knowing what I mean here, maybe you can check that video out and get more of an idea what I'm talking about. So transition time basically means that if you have 4 notes like this, normally when you play them, you would have a slight gap in between them. So the job of the transition time then is to move quicker between each note, so the gaps here disappear. So what happens then is we get a smoother sound basically. But this also helps our synchronization a lot. And the way that you can practice this, you can do it on anything that you're playing. And it's a really good habit to get into, to do this every time you play something slowly. And I would highly suggest that you try this at around 60 BPMs first. So basically doing one note per beat, so one note per second. So let's say we take this, the thing that I played in the beginning. So if I would do that with transition time, I would play it just as I would normally, but just make sure that I have no gaps in between the notes. It's one way of thinking about it, but also moving from this note to that note as fast as I can instead of doing this. So what I did now was slowing my motions down as well as I slow down the tempo. But you don't want to do that. You want to keep the motions as quick as possible. So this also gives me time to relax and sort of direct my technique in a completely different way than if I would sit around like, at that tempo, I don't have that control. I can't do exactly what I feel that I need to do to get the best technique possible. And I'm not saying that there's no merit in practicing like this as long as it's relaxed and accurate, but the transition time is a different thing. And I also want to say I don't practice with transition time all the time, because to really do that properly, you need to do it very slowly. And what I focus on when I do it, because I do it pretty much every day, for a little bit at least, and that's to really try to move quicker and quicker every time. So even if I don't accomplish that, that's my mindset. So it's not about raising the tempo of this metronome. Even though now when I play, I can actually do it at a quicker tempo, but for the longest time, I was playing around 60 BPMs quarter notes. So start there, and then if you feel that you got the hang of it, maybe go up to 80 BPMs, but I wouldn't go past 80 BPMs for quite a while, because you really want to get the most out of this, and to do that, you need to get these fast transitions going. So again, here's the bad way of doing it. Good. And the ironic thing here is that my playing looks robotic when I practice this way, but it sounds smoother, versus if I go like that, it might look smoother, but it sounds choppy, right? So that's the first and most important aspect of developing a good synchronization. So again, take any picking exercise that you're working on and try this way of practicing. And start with using a timer, maybe do 10 minutes per day, because it is, can be boring, but if you focus on the correct things here, meaning trying to go as quick as possible and sort of get better and better at that, you will feel a big difference quite quickly actually. So give that a try first. The second thing that really helped me was to spend most of my practice time on slow playing. And I'm not talking about this super slow transition time playing now. I'm talking about more, it's not even medium tempo playing, it's doing eighth notes at 60 to 80 BPM, so around this tempo. And as you can see, I still have some of that transition time going for me, and that's sort of what I'm looking for. But I'm doing it a bit quicker now. And that's just to be able to go through more exercises. Because if I stick to only transition time, I wouldn't be able to cover, the exercise that I want to cover. So I try to find sort of the meat in the middle here, so I can still get as much transition time as possible, but do it a bit faster so I can actually go through, my different exercises. So that's the second part of my practice, and I kind of see it like if you're into running at all. So zone 2 running is a big thing now, for example, where you take someone like Kipchoge, like this super marathon runner. He ran under 2 hours in Berlin marathon, and I'm not that into running, but that's quite amazing to do. It's a crazy pace to keep. But most of his running, I think he said something like 80% of his running is a much lower heart rate zone than that. That's his, like, you know, marathon speed. So doing that, he builds the base, and then he can work on faster runs as well. But building that base is so important. And even though we're not running here, I think that's a closer comparison to actual guitar technique, in my opinion, than, you know, the strength training analogy, where like you're always trying to do progressive overload and you need to be on the edge of your abilities the whole time. Because I think sitting like this, you know, and like really pushing it all the time, you can't fix anything. Something goes wrong. You're kind of just doing it at that tempo. And I also think it's not great for your fingers. And I've been playing guitar for, you know, 30 years, and I've never been injured, even though I've been practicing up to 12 hours a day sometimes. But that's because most of my practice has been very slow and very accurate. Because I see this as programming your motor memory as well. So I really want to be aware and be in full control of what I'm doing. And, you know, it's not always fun, but what's fun is knowing that all the time that I spend on practicing this stuff will actually take me further. Whereas if I keep pushing things all the time, that won't happen in the same way. Now, the third thing that really helped my synchronization as well was working with accents. So if we take this thing again, I would divide this into, well, 6 notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I would go through it, accenting each note in turn. So I would maybe do 4 times for each note. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. And then from here I would accent the second note. Third. And when I do this, I try to visualize how whatever finger that I put down, how that sort of connects with the pick. Oh, it might sound a bit weird, but it really helps to do that. And also, you don't need to do, I do actually a quite hard accent here, just so you can hear what I'm doing. That's why I turned the volume down. But you don't want to do an accent where you change your technique, just enough so you can feel that connection. I call them mental accents. And then I would go through that. So for any particular exercise, let's say I take this one, and let's say I want to do that in all positions in a particular key, I would go through it doing accents on each note. And also, you know, it could be two times for each note, it could be 4 times or whatever, and then you have to move that up and down the fretboard. And that also gives me some sort of goal and direction for an exercise, because sometimes it can just feel a bit meaningless just playing something up and down and like, okay, now what? But doing this, you will find that certain combinations might be harder, but then you just, maybe you lower the tempo for that one. So if you find that you do this one, and it's harder to hit the 6th 16-note triplet, for example, just do it slower. Just make sure you have your foot on the 1 the whole time. So we go. So that's basically what I would do with the accents, and that works for everything you practice as well. So you can, you know, if I just take a scale. Just decide on a subdivision. So let's say I do 4 notes per beat now, then I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Then do 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But making sure that my foot is strictly on 1 the whole time. So that's accents. Again, I have a video on accents as well that I'm going to link below, so you can check that out if you want some more info. But if you take these 3 approaches and put them into a practice schedule, and you spend, I would say, 30 to 60 minutes at least per day, and do that for a week or 2, you won't be, Paul Gilbert or Yngwie or Jason Richardson in that time, but you should see quite a big improvement in your technique. And don't always look for speed improvements when it comes to the technique. That's just one aspect of it. So what you should look for first is, does it sound better? Is my sound, is it a bit smoother? Is it a bit tighter? Does it feel better to play? Because all those things come together, and that's where a natural increase in speed will come, where you don't push it. You will just find that you can play faster without even trying that much. So that's basically what I focused on when I built my technique to begin with. And then during these last 10 years or so, I've done more rhythmic variations and tried speed bursts and stuff like that. And that can be really helpful as well. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but I'm coming back to that Kipchoge 80% slow practice and then 20% trying to go faster. And I think, I probably go up to 90% of slow practice, but then I try pushing it a bit with speed burst, which I also have a video on, but basically it just means that you go, basically means that you try to play as fast as you can. And when I say as you can, I mean as fast as you can do it accurately. Otherwise, you're just repeating bullshit, and that's not going to help your technique at all. And then you add notes instead. So you start with 2 notes, go to 3 notes, go to 4 notes, and so on. So that approach is also good, but I would not do that for 80% of my practice time, because the speed burst I found only helps as much as you've built the base. And you really build the base by doing the transition time, doing the sort of medium tempo or slow tempo practice, and also working on accents. So that really helped my picking technique a lot. So if you had trouble with synchronization and you haven't found that the old start slow with a metronome and speed it up works for you, give this a try, and hopefully works as well for you as it has done for me, and like I said, countless students. Back in the day, I used to have real issues with fast alternate picking when it came to 2 notes per string. I was fine with 3 notes per string, but the 2 notes per string thing was a bit harder to crack. So if you struggle with fast alternate picking as well, and you don't know what to practice or for how long, I've created the perfect solution for you in the form of the Pentatonic Picking Power Book. So in this book, you'll find a daily workout that will not only help your pentatonic picking, but will also upgrade your overall alternate picking technique. So it contains basically the same exercises I used myself to develop my picking abilities, as well as numerous students over the years that I've given the same exercise to with great results. So I know these exercises work as long as you put in the work. So it's not a quick solution or quick fix. It will still take a lot of work, but at least you have a very easy to follow routine. So if you're up for a big alternate picking upgrade in 2024, I cannot think of a better start. It's $9 and I think it's very underpriced, but I did it that way just so as many people as possible could be helped by this. So check that out.